Welcome to Behind the Mic with AudioFile magazine. I'm Michele Cobb, and we're celebrating AudioFile selections for the best audiobooks of 2024, which are all great recommendations for your next listen. Today we're going to give some love to romance audiobooks, and narrator Elizabeth Knowelden joins us. But first, let me share the full list of AudioFile selections for best romance audiobooks. Avenging Angel by Kristen Ashley, read by Stella Bloom. The Breakup Pack by Emma Lord, read by Natalie Naudus. Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, read by Christine Lakin and Zachary Weber. Love at First Book by Jean McKinlay, read by Brittany Pressley. The Pairing by Casey McQuiston, read by Emma Galvin and Max Myers. And The Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love by India Holton, read by our guest, Elizabeth Knowelden. Welcome, Elizabeth, and congratulations.
Oh, hello. Thank you so much.
So I would love for you to tell us what this book is about because the title is so interesting for a romance.
Absolutely. Okie dokie. So, The Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love is a beautiful romance with lots of hilarious fantasy elements. If anyone knows India Holton's other previous books, she is, and she won't mind me saying, completely bonkers in her writing. So it's absolutely hilarious writing. She describes this as Indiana Jones, but with manners, tea, and parasols. So the short synopsis is that our young leading lady, Beth Pickering, is excellent in her work as an ornithologist. And a life changing competition is announced worldwide for ornithologists from all around the world to rush to England to outsmart each other and find the rarest of the rare birds, the Caladrius bird. Beth keeps bumping into a very suave yet incredibly annoying man, Professor Devon Lockley, who is hot on her heels in solving these clues. So they decide eventually to team up. So you have their romantic journey throughout, starting at being infuriated at each other. You also have their quest to win and find the bird, while also attempting to avoid being murdered by their rivals because ornithologists are lethal. So you can see hilarity ensues, basically.
Well, that does sound a little bizarre to me, lethal
Oh,
ornithologists,
yes.
but
They're vicious. They're vicious. Everyone wants to win, for sure.
so I'm curious, what's most interesting to you about narrating romance audiobooks in particular?
Yeah, it's really interesting because romance came to me. I've only really been looking at uh, kind of performing romance books for the last 18 months or so. And they kind of came to me very unexpectedly. I was very firmly rooted in, I work across all genres, but mainly known for either comedy or fantasy, YA, or anything that might have a sort of magical, possibly darker element to it. And then I think because I was working in fantasy so much, India's earlier books came to me because it's a combination of romance, but obviously a lot of ridiculous comedy with the fantasy side of things. And then from that, romance titles continue to grow, and I love working in the genre. I'm drawn more to closed door romance because I'm a complete romantic. So I
Ah,
love, yeah. So I really love looking at the romantic elements of the books. And, it's very often that I'll be cast in romance that are funny, especially when you have kind of the side characters as well who keep popping in and out. So it's very interesting to me. It's very sweet. And depending on the writer and the project, for example, with this particular book, I was really taken aback by how beautiful and heartwarming the romantic element of the story is that threads its way through the entire book, while you have all this comedy and silliness going around. So India is excellent at really kind of marrying those two, and it's just lovely to be part of a project like that.
do you find anything particularly challenging about romance versus other genres?
I mean, I'll just be swooning around my apartment, but I mean, that can have its problems. But no, I mean, I just love it. I just really, really love it, and yeah, like I say, I just kind of thrive on having fun with all of these characters. And really, especially, there are difficult things going on in the world, so it's
Yes.
it's really lovely. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
so it's not a new thing, but it is lovely to then, when you step up to the mic, to be able to work on something very endearing and very heartwarming. If that's a romantic, straight lit fiction with beautiful writing, or if there are more fantastical comedic elements within a story, you're still looking at people who are looking for connection, which I think so many of us are, anyway, in the world. So I wouldn't say it's particularly challenging. I just love it. I just really, really enjoy working on them.
And you mentioned that you like doing the characters. So tell us, how do you create
Mm.
different voices for the different characters?
Well, it it depends on the book. I mean, for example, for this one, I'll be honest, I just hear them. India is such a great writer that she paints a very, very clear picture of what these characters look like, and obviously their word choices are very specific and very funny. So for me, they're very identifiable. And coming from the theatre, you meet so many people with very interesting backstories or habits. And after a while, you just, without realizing, you just kind of take them on board and they become part of your DNA. And I'll be doing a voice for somebody. And for example, there's a character in The Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love called Hippolyta, who is she's larger than life, shall we say. She's very, very dramatic. And obviously that has to be still rooted in truth. You don't want to play a caricature, but she's very, very expressive all the time. And I, reading the book, I was like, I can just hear her. I know exactly what she sounds like. I can see her dress. I can see the whole thing. She wears purple, right?
Ah,
Yeah, yeah. And then afterwards, I was like, oh, I realize I've just done, someone from my past without realizing it for that particular role. That said, if I'm doing a book and let's say there are six women all in a conversation with one another at the same time, and they're all in their mid 20s, they're all British, they all were educated at the same place, they all know one another, they're from the same town, you obviously have to figure out a way to make this as easy as possible for the audience to understand exactly who's talking without them needing to say, said Hippolyta. So in that case, I will make the leading lady, as it were, as close to my natural voice as possible, and then just sort of branch out from there. There are two in this particular book. There are there are two elderly sisters. If I'm remembering correctly, they're twins. So when you're approaching, how am I going to do their voices differently so it's clear who's talking each time? When they're twins and they're very elderly, and it could, you could run into being offensive or being a caricature. I had to make very specific choices. And so that came down to, okay, what is this one's main selling point? This one of them has a lot of real glee in not being shy about the fact that she's going to try and kill somebody to win this prize. The other sister, for example, has the same glee, but she's a lot more surreptitious about it. So immediately, so I'm like, okay, so one is higher. I'm going to make the glee higher. The fact that she's surreptitious, she's going to speak slightly slower and maybe have a lower tone, and maybe she's even slightly more articulated in how she's going to murder these people. So it will really come down to, you get to a point you have to trust yourself. And I'm very fortunate that, if you've got great writing, you can, they're almost 3D. But if there are characters that are very, very close and you want to make sure that it's easy for the audience to differentiate who's talking and just get swept up in the story, I will spend a little bit of time just making sure I've marked it out very clearly ahead of time exactly how I'm going to make those differences for the characters, just to make sure that, as I say, the audience can just sit back and relax and have a giggle.
well, it sounds like there's a lot of giggles in this one.
Yeah.
Has anything stayed with you about this book?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, India's writing, I don't know if I've mentioned it, but she's very good. So, yeah, no, I love working with her. She's still, I guess, relatively new on the scene. This is her fourth book, but she has come in. kind of like beating down the door with her talent, and it's such a joy to work with her. So I'll be going about my everyday life, and then suddenly I'll just burst out laughing at one particular moment that I've remembered from one of her books. And that is definitely true for this book as well. But one of the things that's really lovely about the ornithologists is our leading lady, Beth. She's an introvert. Often when I'm when I'm doing romances, and there's a strong leading lady, either she has either she's a witch, or she's wielding a sword. She's very overtly brave. And what I love about Beth is that her comfort zone is being delicate, feminine, being at home on a Saturday night, reading a book, having a cup of tea with her cat. That's her comfort zone. She's an introvert. She's quite quiet. She thinks a lot. She's incredibly intelligent, and she does stand up for herself. She's very quick-witted, but she's a character that really is very selective about what she says and when. She doesn't really go in guns blazing. So as a woman, it was really lovely to see that kind of softer, more delicate aspect. And because there are so many different types of characters that we can play, and India did such a beautiful job of showing a courageous woman who is quieter and slightly softer, but still stands up for herself and is still someone that we look up to and really admire.
Well, that's so wonderful, and I appreciate you giving us all those little details. It certainly makes it sound like something that is both fun and romantic and, murderous on some level.
Well, you do have to be careful, yes.
Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth. We've been talking The Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love by India Holton. If you've enjoyed today's episode, we encourage you to tell a friend about our Best of the Year discussions and check out all of the 2024 best audiobooks at audiofilemagazine.com. I'm Michele Cobb. Thanks for listening.
Brilliance Publishing proudly presents today's episode of Behind the Mic.